Hey, everybody, and welcome to the HERstory Collaborative. My name is Jen Buck, and I'm your host here in the collab. I'm a professional speaker, executive strategist, author of 5 books, and a nonprofit founder. Now, my speaking and training business is focused on advocating, activating, and amplifying high-performing women. And that's really what the HERstory Collaborative is all about. Now, my guest today is someone I'm really excited about. Her name is Jacqui Taaffe. Jacqui is a life and mindset coach, hypnotherapist, and Amazon best-selling author of the book Inspire, Heal, Empower. She's also an educator, mentor, voluntary bereavement counselor with 25 years of managerial experience in the development and progression of people. Jacqui is passionate about empowering people by giving them the tools, techniques, and developmental opportunities to better mental health habits and a sense of overall well-being. She believes that the most important relationship you will ever have in your life is with yourself, and she encourages you to become an authority on yourself because she knows that self-knowledge is self-empowerment and that you are your greatest advocate. So welcome to the collab, Jacqui. I am so happy to have you here with me all the way from Ireland.
Jen, thank you so much for having me today. It's wonderful to be here with you and to be on the collab. I just love it. I love your whole purpose around it. Wonderful.
I love that. I love that. I felt like when we met, it was just really compelling for me. You know, I was very interested in you, very sort of attracted to you, your strength, your story, what brought you to this point. And I just think that you have a message that so many people need to hear, women in particular. You know, many of us have gone through these really traumatic experiences, and you've chosen to allow this sort of breaking open of your experience in your book. So can you tell us a little bit about your book so that people can kind of understand the premise of my introduction and who you are?
So my book is Inspire, Heal, and Empower. And it's inevitable that the book is now here. I now know that in hindsight as I look back. I wrote it in 2020, but it is as a consequence of the training I've had, the understanding I have about me, becoming an authority on me, becoming aware of my thoughts, how my thoughts affect my feelings, how my feelings then affect my behaviors. So in 2020, I arrived in a place in my life that I could go back and look at a traumatic event that will have happened 37 years ago this year on the 23rd of October. And as last year evolved and went on, and I journal entered, what became really apparent and clear to me, Jen, was that it just wasn't journal entries. There was something greater. I got a sense or a feeling that I had to share it. And it didn't matter that, you know, when I went public, you know, the opinions, maybe the judgments that I may have. What I sensed was that there was a greater good in sharing and writing the book. Yes. So I trusted that feeling, that inner knowing. And I say that in the book. It's a true story of finding your voice, breaking the silence, and trusting your knowing. Yeah. And I did that, and I allowed that. And that captured an event in my life. On the 23rd of October, 1984, I was admitted for an eye operation to a hospital. And within 2 hours of admittance to that hospital, a so-called doctor presented themselves in my semi-private room. And when they approached the bed and they drew the curtains around to examine me, I assumed it was for an eye examination. But he proceeded to tell me that I was to have an internal and breast check. So in that moment, I challenged that at 15. And I did say, I don't understand what this has to do with my eye. And I'll always remember so clearly, he just said, it has to be done. So in that moment, it happened. And when he left, he proceeded to the next bed, because it was a semi-private room, and he did it on the girl in the bed beside me of a similar age. Terrible. So the book it captures my thoughts, the coping strategies I then took on in that moment, which I didn't recognize or realize until very later on in my life. It shares journal entries. It goes into minimizing how I judged myself, how I played the jury on myself, and how I overcame shame.
Yeah.
Or as I call it, secretly hiding all meaningful emotions. And when we don't secretly hide all our meaningful emotions, well, then we just find freedom, because what we don't suppress, we express. And within that is an infinite well-being.
Yes.
So it's a beautiful book. It will take you through the event. It will take you through my thoughts, my coping strategies, and it has an incredible toolkit in it. Toolkit that I use even today, even to sit here in front of you and to have this conversation with you. I go to that toolkit and I pull it out and I use it. And it is something I would suggest everybody try. It's very personal, because with everything we try, we must experience it ourselves. And it's within that experience, if we find it works, well, then it works.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, you tweak it and you move on to suit you, because this is my story. This is my journey. This is my book. But it's for the reader to take whatever pieces they so wish to use, because I wrote it for them. I wrote that they were full front of my mind as I wrote this book. So it's a beautiful book.
Nice. So you were 15 years old, sexually assaulted by an authority figure, a doctor, when you're in a hospital for a procedure on your eye. And I can't imagine how that must have changed you, you know, at that moment, holding on to that shame, because we don't know any different, right? What did we do to allow this? And did it even happen? And I'm sure there was some of that too, you know, questioning who you are. It's, you know, sort of a subliminal gaslighting that occurs, I would imagine, even though someone wasn't doing it to you. Was that, how did you deal with that? I guess I don't want to put words to it. As a 15-year-old young girl, you know, as a little teenager, how did you cope with that right after? It's terrible.
It's, you know, it's fascinating as I go on and I talk about this and I think about it. And every time I think, I reflect and I go back. And all I can say in that moment, I didn't recognize in the moment of making that shift, but on reflection, as you look back, you take on a certain set of coping strategies. Some of them I put into the book, you know, and I became very protective of me. I took on a protection mechanism, or as I call it, a suit of armor. One might say I became maybe a little bit of a warrior, as in, you know, you wouldn't walk on Jacqui, because Jacqui would stand up for herself. Yes. So I became an advocate for myself, but also for others. I don't like to see injustice. I don't like to see unfairness. And I really have a high sense of integrity and respect. And that in certain ways stood to me, because I did great advocacy work all my life. And I was very lucky in the previous roles that I did. But you're correct, Jen, when you say the confusion that reigns, and it reigns on you when you're sexually assaulted by somebody in a position of authority is really underestimated in my view. Because if you were walking along the street, or I was walking along the street, and we were sexually assaulted, well, we would be sexually assaulted, and there would be a lot of people having a lot of things to say. When that happens in that setting, the silence is deafening.
I bet.
It's deafening. And what I really have become to understand is that he knew I would be silent.
Of course.
And most likely many after me. Yes. Because it wasn't me. I just happened to be in that bed. So it could have been anyone. I just had to be, unfortunately, in that moment at that time. Yeah. And the confusion that reigns, the questioning you do, and I get into this in the book, and even now I do it, and I catch myself, and I'd say, but sure, it only happened to me once. Minimizing it, when in actual fact, it doesn't matter. No. What happened to you, to me, to anybody else, it has an equal value. Yes. Something happens 100 times, it is as valuable as happening once. It's your personal experiences, how you what you take from it, and how it changes you to go on and proceed in your life. And so I think that is highly underestimated at the minute. That anybody that suffered such an event like that, there's an underestimation of the impact it has on them.
Yes.
And I think I would like to make that highly valued and recognized.
Yeah.
And it'd be a beacon of light for people to say, do you know what? That happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with that. And I'm going to speak and stand up for myself, because there's a tool I use in the toolkit of the coaching toolkit. I put it in the book, and give it up and give it back. I gave everything up and back to him, because nothing belonged to me.
No.
I did nothing wrong.
That's powerful.
And it's powerful.
Yes, very powerful. When I was 4, I was sexually assaulted. And I, as an older woman, would say, you know, of course, when we all started talking about these things much more with the Me Too movement and Time's Up, I started realizing how impacted I was by these things that I had stuffed for years. And I remember talking to someone and saying, oh, you know, well, the first one was when I was 4, but it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't like I was, and I, you know, ... I minimized and minimized and minimized. And the interesting thing is, I remember when I decided to go to therapy for this, because I was angry that someone would do these things to me throughout my life, you know, and there were 7 instances where somebody thought it was okay to step into my space and touch my body, right? And so I remember that when I went through therapy and we started the process, and of course we started with the first, which was when I was 4, and I tried to do the minimize. And I remember the therapist said, that's not to be minimized. You were 4. And that one instance told you how unsafe you were and why you were unsafe for the rest of your life in different intimate relationships, why you've never been able to feel 100% safe and depend upon certain people in your life or certain, you know, roles that those people have. And it was so interesting to hear her just put her foot down strongly and say, that does not deserve minimizing. And when we actually went through the EMDR therapy, do you know the one that tore me up the most was the first? It was the one that literally is the seed for all of the things that have happened in my life, the perspectives that I have, the viewpoints that, you know, about things, kind of the warrior syndrome, not syndrome, that's the wrong way to put it, but the warrior position or role that we step into, because I have as well. But it was that one. And it was the one I kept minimizing. It was the one, you know, that happened to the littlest girl. And so I value what you're saying so much, because I can relate to that, you know, needing to let her be heard and to recognize that, you know, she had a voice, she has a voice, but also none of that was her fault. None of it. None of that belonged to her. So what you've said is, for me personally, very powerful, because I can relate strongly to that.
Oh, well, I really want to thank you for sharing that with me. I didn't know that happened to you when you were 4, and continue to happen. So I'm sorry for that.
Thank you.
But I'm so happy and delighted for you that you've really stood into your power.
Mm-hmm.
You to shine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What could you tell people who are listening? And my audience is primarily women, but I know this happens to men as well, and boys, right? So I don't want to limit this to only women, but what would you say to people on how to get through some of this? Because I think that there's so much power in what you're saying. And I know that there's so much knowledge and wisdom in your book. What would you tell people when they're starting to become aware of either that it happened, or maybe that they need to be honest and brave about acknowledging what happened, right? What would you say to people?
It goes back to what I truly believe. When you become an authority on yourself, when you start to become aware of things and stuff, you know, it can be a scary path. There's no doubt about it. But if you trust yourself and you go with these kind of little snippets of awareness that you'll start to get more and more and more. And if you get curious with yourself and why am I reacting like that? What is that thought about? Why am I behaving like that now in this moment with other people? Because we can have triggers in other situations that remind us of the old situation. And be very forgiving of yourself and love yourself. That's one of the tools in the book. You've got to love yourself. Yeah. And then go and find someone you can trust and start even that conversation. Just to say, do you know what? I'm just really having a tough time. And trust that and be kind to yourself and be gentle and go gentle and gentle and gentle. And I would recommend too for you to write down stuff. If you have stuff in your head, write it down. Watch what happens. It's completely different from what's swirling around in your mind as opposed to when it's on the page. And it will also start to strengthen you. And because you're hugely powerful. And allow that to be. And you're never alone. And all I can say to anybody who's starting out on this journey, in the middle of this journey, I can tell you from my own personal experience that I have never experienced the freedom and the peace of mind. I didn't realize I was lacking this, right? I thought I was okay. But I did not realize the peace of mind and the freedom and the infinite, if it goes any way to describe it, well-being that I've experienced by sharing my story. Now, I'm not saying you share it in the way I have done. You can share it in many ways. But find a friend, find a therapist, find a coach, but share your story and work on yourself because you deserve to work on yourself. You deserve to stand into your brilliance.
Yes.
And you're never alone. That I know, because when I start to reach out, I find people like you, Jen.
Right. Right.
You know,
I think there's so much truth there because I feel much more powerful as well since I went through the process of allowing the pain to let go, allowing myself to acknowledge it wasn't my fault, allowing myself to see patterns that I'd chosen as an adult since those experiences and understanding it more. And I found that for me, the EMDR and talk therapy was really helpful. And I love that for you. Not only did you write the book, but you also help women through their trauma as a coach. You help them through this process. And that must be incredibly rewarding for you.
I just love what I do. I love that at the core of each and every one of us, we're all exactly the same. And I love when I work with an individual who comes to me who's having negative self-talk, beliefs, ideas about themselves that simply aren't true, when we unpick them and work on them, and they can take back what belongs to them. Because we don't get confident. We don't go out and buy confidence. Confidence is not out on a shelf in a shop. It's within us. And it's like an onion gem. It's an unpeeling of all the conditioning, of all the ideas and beliefs that have been installed in us.
Yes.
Unpicking that, layering it back so that you're back to your pure, powerful self. And that's what you are.
Yes.
I firmly believe that and know that because I see it in people and individuals.
Yes. That's amazing.
And
do you do this over the phone? Because I know that, for instance, we're going to have people all over the world, from the television show to the podcast and the webcast online. You're going to have people who are interested in walking this journey with you and unpeeling those onions. And so I'm wondering if you do this via Zoom or phone with people, how do you usually work within your practice?
I work on Zoom and it works absolutely perfectly. Somebody might as well be in the room. There's no difference in the quality of what the person gets. Sure. So what I love is that I can work with anybody in the world, and that's exciting that I'm not limited. Yes. And so they can get me by Zoom. We can do a call, but I do love to watch somebody be able to sit face to face with somebody.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I love that. So I want to transition here into some maybe a little more casual, informal questions that I always like to ask at the end of the interview because they're just sort of quirky. And I try to change the questions up every month or so that we can kind of get some, some sort of a glimpse into your personal life and a little bit more about who you are outside of the work, right? And so I'm going to throw about 10 questions at you. You just let me know what comes to mind for you. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't need you to give me more information than just sort of your first gut response. Does that sound good?
Wonderful. Can't wait.
Good. Okay. Who is your favorite woman in history that you would want to spend an hour with on your park bench?
Maya Angelou.
Maya Angelou. She comes up so often. My goodness. Great answer. What's your favorite place that you have ever been to in the world?
L'Azize in Italy.
Oh, okay.
Lake Garda. Lake Garda.
Okay.
Stunning. You would love it.
Excellent. Okay. If you were given $1 million to donate, where would you place that money?
Multiple sclerosis. My sister has MS.
Oh, nice. Okay. Not nice about your sister. I am so sorry about that, but I love that you would put it there. I've had several friends with MS as well. Okay. What's your favorite book or podcast that you have read or listened to recently?
Well, now, I have to say, it has to be Inspire, Heal, and Empower.
Yes.
Jen, it has to be my favorite book.
Yes. Absolutely. I love that answer. What is a quirky or wacky fact about you that not many people know?
I was bitten by a little dress monkey at the age of about 2.5 and nearly lost my eye. I had to have plastic surgery.
No.
And what's even more brilliant is that out of that event, I did not blame the monkey. I am not afraid of animals. I adore them.
Wow.
Isn't
What
that unreal?
a freak accident to occur. My gosh. And I love your spirit of not being mad at the monkey. I love that.
Well, I shouldn't try to, I tried to hug him. And so he naturally thought I was attacking him and he bit me.
Sure.
Yeah.
2.5 years old, you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And I remember being rushed to the hospital.
Wow.
That event, I remember that event so clearly as well, him coming up to bite me.
So I'm wondering too, the connection between you were going in to have an eye surgery, was that connected to that event?
No, about a year later, I tumbled straight down a flight of stairs and hit a front door.
Okay.
I knocked the muscle in the back of my eye loose and I had a cast. I had a rolling cast in my eye.
Got
so
it.
in the book, there's a photograph of me when I'm little.
Got it. Got it.
With the eye, yeah.
I wonder what the connection is to sight and how you see things. Those are two big events. Those are two big events.
Well, what they are is with anything in life, right? Traumatic events or really wonderful events, they leave a huge imprint.
Mm-hmm.
And so these events are really clear to me.
Yeah.
And that I know. So they're the 3 big events that happened in my life, and I can clearly remember them.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Isn't
fascinating. It? Mm-hmm. It really is. So next question, what's your most treasured item?
I thought about that because an item to me is separate. It's not a person and it's not an individual. Because then I possess them and I can't do that because we're all individuals and we're all unique and I don't even own my daughter. It would be wrong for me to bring her up that way. She's her own unique individual and I've got to encourage her whatever path she takes. But if I was to pick an item, it has to be warm and fluffy, Jen, because I've got 3 Bijans.
Oh, that's right.
Lynn, Riley and Bailey. So
yes.
I love them.
I love that. I love that. Warm and fluffy. Yes. So what's your theme song? When they have you walking on the stage to speak in front of 50,000 people about your book and you're an international bestseller and the most most talked about and well thought of speaker in the world because of what you've done. What are you going to walk on stage to?
Katy Perry and Fireworks.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Because you are a fire, it's wonderful.
Yes. Love her, love the song, the whole bit. Yes. What is one thing that you want to accomplish before you're done?
To make significant changes for people in their lives, to bring them to a place where they actually know that they hold all their power. Nice. And to change that mindset shift to think that everything outside of them dictates how they can feel. It doesn't. Well, there's only two things in our lives that we have control of, and that is our reactions and our responses. And when we experience that and we understand that, you then take your power back. And so I want to give people their power, because I don't want to give it to them. I want to unleash or unearth it because it's within them.
Yes. Yes. I love that.
If I manage to do that and make change with that book, I think I'll have done well.
Beautiful. What is one word that you would say describes you best?
It's a tough one, right? Because I always say 2 or 3 words. But I'm kind.
Yes, I would agree with that. 100%. Yes, that would be in my top words to describe you in the short time I've known you. Yeah, I agree. And the last question, finish this sentence. When I'm really old, I hope to see.
When I'm really old, I hope to see more compassion, understanding, and love on this planet.
Beautiful. I appreciate you so much. I love that I've gotten to spend this time with you. I'm so grateful. I know that it's, the time zones are so different for the two of us, you in Ireland and me here in Arizona in the US. And so I'm just really glad I got to spend this time with you. And I'm very thankful for you being here. Can you tell people where they can find you? I know that people are interested, and whatever avenues you can give them that will bring them to you, now the stage is yours.
Okay. So I have my website. It's JacquiTaffe.com. The book link is within the website. So when you go into JacquiTaffe.com, you will see the link. You'll find the link which will bring you. So the book is now on Amazon. It's available in the US. It's available in Australia. It's available in the UK. It's available in Ireland. It's wonderful. It's just incredible that this is available around the world. Mm-hmm. And I'm on LinkedIn as Jacqui Taaffe. You'll find me. I'm on Instagram as Jacqui Taaffe, JT Coaching. I'm on Facebook as Jacqui Taaffe, and I'm on Twitter as Jacqui Taaffe.
Good.
So yeah, and please reach out to me. And you're not alone. Whoever's listening in and maybe gets something from this interview or resonates with you, you are not alone. And when we reach out and we look for help, that's when the magic happens.
Yes. Absolutely. Before we go, I just want to give a thank you to our sponsor of this program. It's 100 Angels, and they are an organization transforming communities through service and education by providing comfort to populations in need through physical, emotional, and spiritual care. And if you'd be interested in being a part of 100 Angels, you can find them at 100angels.org. Jacqui, you are an absolute joy, and I adore you, and I feel like I have a new friend that I have found, and I really hope that someday we get to meet in person and that we're able to continue this, because I really just think you're incredibly special, and I enjoy you so much, and I think you are a fierce warrior for all the right things, and I just hope you have all the success with this book and with your practice, because I think a lot of us need you.
Jen, thank you so much. And you know what? You're wonderful. And thank you so much for bringing me on today and allowing me this space to share this story. And you're fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you. And everybody, we will see you next time. As you know, we drop these episodes every single week, and we are always bringing fantastic women on who are changing their corner of the world to inspire you. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can find me at jenbuckspeaks.com, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.